Hi, Andy XL back with another NFXL podcast. As promised, I'm going to return to a update on the 2026 NFL draft for October. So this is the October update for wide receivers. Now, going into the season, I stated that really an average of about 15 wide receivers get taken in the first 3 rounds of drafts. And going into 2025, the best receiver in this class or in the college game at the moment will not be draft eligible for 2026. That still remains the case. Um, Having said that, I've added 7 to my original 16 on top of him to make 23 candidates to go in the first 4 rounds of the 2026 draft. So if we're looking at 15 in the first 3, if I've got 23 that could go in the first 4, that's telling you there's a pretty deep class here now. There's some talent emerging in the early part of the season, and it's beginning to look like a better and better class. There's some guys really showing up well this season. So let's get into it. Briefly, that number one guy that's still not going to come out in this draft, just in case you've never heard of him by some hook or crook, is Jeremiah Smith, who's the sophomore at Ohio State. He's burning it up again this season, 480 yards and 7 touchdowns in his first 5 games of the season. So he's averaging nearly 70 yards a game, and he's averaging over a touchdown a game. It's incredible. He really does look like a real big superstar waiting to come out of college, but it won't be in 2026. So let's move on to who is coming out this year before while I have a coffee. Right, moving up from the second spot in my preseason rankings to the top spot now is Jordan Tyson, the senior at Arizona State. Now, um, I stated in my preseason bit that he's got an innate ability to create separation and win contested catches. Um, Great hands, yak ability, and was borderline round 1, round 2 at that stage. Well, he's definitely in round 1 right now. He already has 483 yards and 7 touchdowns to his name this season from 5 games. And his 2025 highlight reel shows he makes all the catches, and has a wide range of ways to make plays. It's not just one or two types of catches he makes them all. And there are a couple of spectacular ones on there too. So it's worth looking at if you want to learn more about Tyson. Um, Jordan, not Mike, that is. Um, but yeah, he's the top guy in this class at the moment for me, who's a draft eligible. Moving up from 3 to 2, sorry, moving up from 3 to 2 is Carnell Tate. Now he's playing, the other side to Jeremiah Smith at Ohio State. Essentially, he's a junior. Um, so he's got 435 yards and 4 touchdowns as the wide receiver 2 at Ohio State behind Jeremiah Smith. And when you think he was the Buckeyes wide receiver 3 last season behind Jeremiah Smith and a certain Emeka Egbuka, therein lies the rub with Tate. Is he good enough to stand up when others are not drawing the primary attention of the defense? But he continues to produce with similar numbers to Smith this season, just fewer touchdowns. The question, though, like I say, still remains and hovers there, and this is one the scouts and teams are going to have to consider: is he good enough to be a wide receiver 1 at the next level when he has not been for the Buckeyes, or is he more of a wide receiver 2 type? He he may need to convince teams of the format if he is to secure a mid first round pick, but he's playing well enough to warrant that at the moment. Right, moving up from number 7 is Mackay Lemon, the junior at USC. Um, Now, I said preseason he's neither the biggest or quickest in the class, but he's a polished route runner with good hands. Those skills could earn him a round 2 selection. Well, he's another who's worked his way into round 1, starting the season really well with 589 receiving yards and 6 touchdowns in the opening 5 games of the campaign. He could hardly have done more. Tape shows he has great hands, is really good on short and intermediate routes. He could be more of a slot guy at the next level than an outside receiver. So he's probably the first of that type. Well, he is the first of that type at the moment in this class. Right. Number 5 before the season was Denzel Boston. So he's still hanging on to round 1. Um, Size rather than speed, his best physical asset, is what I said about him before the season started. But he's also a fine route runner. Um, I say route rather than route because I'm English. Um, on short to intermediate routes rather than deep ones. but the extra height and weight may give him a good red zone target in the NFL too. Now, he's off to a decent start with 346 yards and 4 touchdowns from his first 5 games. Film backs up my preseason sports thoughts that size is his primary asset. He rarely gets clear separation, but does enough to enable him to box defenders out and has excellent hands to make big catches. Right, dropping into round 2, and he was the top guy in the class, apart from Jeremiah Smith. I like to say, let's stop talking about Smith because he's not in this class. So Williams was the top guy in this class. Santonio Williams, a junior at Clemson. So he's dropped into round 2, and he's dropped down the ranking orders as well. He's recovering from an early season hamstring injury, and so far has just 86 yards and no scores. When you look at his tape from previous seasons, it shows he beats people with speed. So that hamstring injury is a concern, as speedsters tend to have a history in that regard, and it is elite level speed that he possesses. He will need to run a quick 40 pre-draft to convince scouts on that front that he's got that top end speed. But the hamstring injury is holding him back, so now he needs to get back on track and start producing if he's going to get back into round 1 contention for me. Another one moving up lists, but he's still in round 2, is Kevin Concepcion, or KC Concepcion, junior at Texas A&M. So he's off to a good, sorry, faltering slightly. I'm trying to read my comments from pre-season there. Good start to this season with 401 receiving yards and 5 touchdowns. He may be competing with Mackay Lemon to be the first slot receiver taken in this draft. And so he's climbing the boards, but he's probably not going to go in front of Lemon at the moment. But keep going and he's got a chance. Right. First new name. It wasn't on the list pre-season. I said I'd added 7. This is the first of them. He's a junior at Tennessee, Chris Brazzell. He initially shone at Tulane before moving to Tennessee. His 6'5" slender frame giving the height, build, also the flexibility to make moves that are his best attributes rather than speed. He's very agile in the air. He is pretty raw technically and maybe needs to bulk up a little to stand up physically in the NFL. So durability may be a concern for NFL scouts, but he shows that natural abilities that may be just too mouth-watering for teams to ignore come draft time. So far this season, outstanding 531 yards and 7 touchdowns. So, he's up there with the very best in college at the moment in terms of production. More coffee. Right. Next, dropping slightly at the moment, but still in round 2. Eric Singleton, a junior at Auburn. Just 265 yards and 2 touchdowns this season. When you look at his tape, there's plenty of end arounds and plays to get the ball in his hands and let his speed do the rest. Right now, he's beyond the likes of Lemon and Concepcion for that type of receiver. So again, he's probably in. You can sometimes break these wide receivers down. Are they competing with the outside guys or the slot guys? Well, Singleton's competing probably with the slot guys, and those that you get the ball in their hands, then they'll produce. But he's probably dropping slightly down that pecking order. He's probably the first one pre-season. Now he's gone down to be the third of those due to his low production. So he needs to turn that upwards. Next is Nick Harbour, junior at South Carolina. I had him 8th in my pre-season, so he's about the same place. I had him down as a deep threat pre-season, an awesome deep threat. I thought he might possibly be. I'm reading my own words, but if he can, I've said if he can expand his route tree in 2025, he will be a round 1 certainty, and he could even be one of the very best in class draft time. So I set a high bar for him. So let's see what I'm saying now. Living up to that deep threat tag, averaging 20 yards of reception, but he's only had 11 of them and 1 touchdown in his opening 5 appearances of 2025. And when I watch his tape, he's leaving me with that feeling he's not making the most of his track athlete attributes. That's his background. He's a track athlete. He's a huge guy, huge fast guy, has all the physical attributes. So in that way, you might even compare him to DK Metcalf. Now that's a lofty comparison, but you know what I'm saying. But he's not producing like Metcalf does, and he needs to start putting up bigger numbers if he's to um, live up to his capabilities. Right, that rounds out the round two, guys. Round three starts with the second of the new guys coming into this, and that's Chris Bell. He's his senior at Louisville. He's a 220-pound guy who can run a 4:44.40, according to Draft Buzz. And he definitely got the raw materials NFL scouts love to see in a draft candidate, a wide receiver. On top of that, he shows good technical attributes, and once the ball is in his hands, has the power to run through tackles and tacklers. He may be limited in terms of route running right now, but teams may look at him and think with coaching there is still more to come from Bell. In terms of production, he's had 502 yards and 4 touchdowns this season. And his tapes show he's a receiver who maxes out what he can get from every reception, which is a great quality to have, and it will certainly endear him to scouts. If he continues his strong start to the season, round two is certainly within his reach, and maybe even more. Right, another guy who's sort of hovering around. He hasn't moved up, hasn't moved down. He's still in round three at the moment. Is Jeremy Bernard, the senior at Alabama. I said in preseason he lacks the elite physical size and speed to be a wide receiver at the next level, but his solid all-round game could make him a good wide receiver too in the NFL. Now, he's probably playing better than that, and he's pushing me. He's trying to prove me wrong there, because he's had 392 yards and 6 touchdowns to his name this season as he seeks to move himself up draft boards. But like I say, he's not convinced me yet, and for me, he still looks like more of a wide receiver too than a real top wide receiver at the next level. Now, a new guy coming in the list, Jacoby Lane, junior at USC. Lane has the size but lacks speed and has the traits that allow him to dominate smaller corners, and as such, he has the look of a contested catch stroke red zone threat in the next level. But maybe he's more than that, as he's shown with 1 or 2 big plays so far this season, and he has certainly done enough this season to draw greater attention from scouts. On tape, he makes some terrific contested catches and has hands that allow him to haul in anything that's pretty much in his zip code. So he's off to a really good start this season. Although the production isn't massive, 278 yards and a touchdown, but he's playing well. That's the point. Right, another one treading water really, maybe slightly dropping from the pre-season is Elijah Sarrett, senior at Indiana. He's had a very nice start to the season with 412 yards and 6 touchdowns thus far, and his tape shows a receiver that is great at adjusting his body to make catches and is not afraid of contact. But he's efficient rather than spectacular for me, so needs to continue to produce if he is to get out of round 3 in what is looking like a stronger and stronger class. You know, he's not done anything wrong, but these new guys coming into the list have kind of jumped above him. So that's where he is. Dropping down at the moment is Zachariah Branch, who was 9 in my pre-season list. He's a junior at Georgia, 234 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns so far this season. So he needs to up his production for his new team. He moved over from USC. But get the ball in his hands and like the blue touch paper is pretty much the case with Brunch. Once he's got it, I mean, he's only 5'10 and 175 pounds, and he's a really quick guy. So it's a case of can you get the ball in his hands? But he's not done enough this season to sort of hold off other challengers at the moment. Another standstill guy, Dion Burks, a senior at Oklahoma. Another smaller, speedy slot receiver type. So when you bear in mind, I've already mentioned like 3 or 4 of them. If you're the 4th or 5th of the slot guys, you're probably looking at round 3 at best. And that's where he is at the moment. 275 yards and 2 touchdowns, but he had a 100-yard game against Michigan, making it a decent start to the season. So outside that Michigan game, he actually not a great deal. But he needs to do more to get above the other slot guys in this class draft-wise, which is exactly what I'm saying, really. So I wrote what I thought. It's funny that. Right, another new guy, Ian Strong, the junior at Rutgers. Now, you don't get many coming out of Rutgers at wide receiver, but there you are. Here's one. A 4.60-40 is what Draft Buzz give him, and that would turn off NFL scouts for sure. So he may need to show he's faster than that come the combine stroke pro day season. But what he does has is the size, physicality, and toughness to dominate defenders, and he could be another real red zone contested catch beast at the next level for teams that do not have that type of receiver on their roster right now. 413 yards and a couple of touchdowns in 4 games make it a strong start to 2025 for strong start. You get it, right? Now, clinging on to round 3 at the moment, he was number 16 in my preseason list. Malachi Fields, the senior at Notre Dame. I said he's certainly going to be one to watch in his new surroundings as he moved from Virginia to Notre Dame. And he might be capable of climbing up draft boards this season. He's had 319 yards and 2 touchdowns, which make it a decent start for Fields. Can he build on it and rise up draft boards on a good and improving Notre Dame team? That certainly gives him the opportunity to do so, but he has to make the most of it. So now then, we've got some more new guys I want to mention, and some dropping into around day 3 out of day 2 now. Nick Anderson's on the drop for me. One of the Andersons at LSU. He's a junior. He's had a very quiet start to the season. Just 8 catches, 72 yards and a touchdown. And that's not the production that's going to cut it for NFL scouts. So he's dropped into day 3. A new guy who's trying to push up draft boards and might challenge those I've already mentioned is CJ Daniels, a senior at Miami. He's big but not really big. He's quick but not really quick. He showed well initially at Liberty before moving to LSU for the 2024 season. He did okay there, but failed to establish himself as a starter there. So if you bear in mind he's there with the Andersons, and he didn't really get ahead of him. So he moved to Miami for his senior year. He's doing better at Miami, but all of the above indicates he could be more of a wide receiver 3 than somebody you are going to go after on day 1 or day 2 in the 2026 draft. But like I said, he started well at Miami with 269 yards and 5 touchdowns, as he seems to be enjoying life more there than he did at LSU. To have got him into the early considerations of NFL scouts. Now, number 1 dropping out of day 2 to day 3 is Eugene Wilson, the third junior at Florida. He come off an injury last season, so he needed to stay healthy and put up big numbers this season. And if he did so, he could be capable of climbing draft boards, is what I said pre-season. Well, he hasn't done that. He also featured as a kick returner in previous seasons. He's not featured in that regard this year. And it's just 73 yards and a pair of touchdowns. So he's done all right in scores, but no yardage really at all. So he's dropping. 2 more new guys. Eric Rivers, first of all, senior at Georgia Tech. An NFL team looking for a complementary deep threat receiver could well give Rivers serious consideration early on day 3. He does not have elite speed, but is certainly quick and knows how to use his speed effectively to beat defenders and create initial separation that he can then make into big plays downfield. 207 yards and a touchdown make it a moderate start at Georgia Tech. Whilst he was a shark at Florida International, which is where he was before, needs to show he can be a big fish at this higher level of competition in 2025 if he wants to get into the day 2 draft-wise. But he's really to come up on the peripheries of scouts' radars early in the season. And the final new one I've added is Kevin Coleman, a senior at Missouri. Coleman shapes like a slot receiver at the next level. He's neither big enough or fast enough to beat bigger, faster outside corners in the NFL, but he runs excellent routes and is shifty enough to add yards after the catch too. As such, he's unlikely to climb into day 2. He's, as I say, he's behind all those other slot guys I mentioned. But for a team looking to add a slot wide receiver 3, he could be a really good addition via an early day 3 pick. So that's where he stands at the moment. He's put up 386 yards and a touchdown so far in 2025. And the final guy still on the list but dropping is the other Anderson at LSU, Aaron Anderson, another junior. I said pre-season he and Nick Anderson could be competing to be the main targets for Garrett Nussmeier. Well, neither of them have done very much, to be honest. He has 23 catches for 305 yards without a touchdown across his first 5 games of the season. He's doing okay, but nothing spectacular. So he's dropping into day 3 as I have it at the moment. So there's my look at what looks a pretty deep class. Like I say, you've got some guys dropping into day three there aren't doing very well at the moment, but if they turn it around, they just fleshes, and there could be more to appear yet. But it looks a pretty deep class, and there's some good quality appearing towards the top end now. So took a while to get through all of them, but I think it's worth it. And this could be a much better class than, say, the running back class, which looks pretty thin outside Jeremiah Love at the moment, and a quarterback class that's pretty muddled. There's some guys playing really well, but it's still not really formed yet, that quarterback class. But this wide receiver class is definitely beginning to shape now, and it's a pretty good shape. All right, so that rise up wide receivers. In terms of the draft, it will be tight ends that will come back when next, and that will definitely be a shorter piece than this. See you soon.